Mark Carney had his first official press conference after being elected the Prime-Globalist of Canada. And as you would expect, Canada is in for more spending and more socialism. Carney and President Trump met in the Oval Office for the first time, and our prime chameleon quickly goes from all elbows up to elbows down. And this is what happens when you're in the presence of the American president, apparently. Danielle Smith also had a press conference promising to put Albertans first and saying that she would not get in the way of citizens of Alberta requesting a vote for separation. This episode is a tale of three leaders: how they lead, how they care for their people, and what they promise to do for their people. And we're here to help you navigate through all of the politicking. It is May 10th. I'm Andrew DeBartolo. That's Matt Hallick. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Hey there, friends, and welcome back to Liberty Dispatch, where we bring you conservative Canadian news from an unapologetically Christian perspective. As always, make sure that wherever you're getting our content from, you're interacting with what we do. And if you like what we do, you know what to do on your various platforms. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, share it around with people, and most importantly, get over to our Substack, ldcanada.substack.com, and become a subscriber over there. And it is well worth your time to not only subscribe as a free subscriber and stay up to date with everything that we have going on, but also, Andrew, to become a paid subscriber, because that way you get access to the full array of Liberty Dispatch content, including our full interviews with amazing guests like P. Andrew Sandlin, like Dr. Joseph Boot, like our upcoming interviews with our brother John Speed on abortion, and very exciting to announce our forthcoming episode with Samuel Cooper, the investigative journalist out of, well, I guess originally Ontario, then BC, then I think he's back in Ontario. So he's bouncing around, but he is Canada's finest investigative journalist. And we had a truly wonderful conversation with him. If you want to understand what is going on in Canadian foreign policies, in geopolitics as it pertains to China and Canada and the US, and what the tariffs are all about, and the how everything fits together, you are definitely going to want to watch that podcast, because I don't think you can get a more fulsome analysis of what's going on than the discussion that we have with Samuel Cooper. It will click things into place for you just about what's going on. So that's all stuff that you can get, but you can only get access, especially when it relates to our conversation with Sam, to us talking about Mark Carney's connections with China, and everything like that, if you become a full paid subscriber over at ldcanada.substack.com. So be sure to go over there and become a paid subscriber. Andrew, it is great to see you, brother. It's always good to be with you. And I know we have got a great show teed up for everybody today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Glad it's the weekend. Was really excited about our interview with Sam yesterday. And I think our audience is going to enjoy. Obviously, you'll enjoy the first 45 minutes, which was tremendous. And then we went extra. We're supposed to go about 50 minutes. I think we did close to 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
That's behind
it was
the
awesome.
paywall. So a long portion of the interview for our paid subscribers, which you do not want to miss. And then there was a portion of the interview that only happened when we were done recording. And that's not available to you. You'll have to send a very large check to me personally, and then maybe I'll divulge what we talked about, but maybe not. We'll see. So you're definitely gonna want to take in that. So it's been a good week. We're halfway through May already, which is wild.
Yeah, getting there,
And
man. It's crazy.
thinking about our interview yesterday, actually, you may, as you begin to research some of the stuff and look into some of the stuff that Sam was saying, you might be thinking, is it
I
a
gotta
good idea
protect
for me to just
myself.
be, yeah, should I just be searching for this stuff without extra protections in place, specifically on my devices as I browse the internet? That's a very good question. We may have a solution for you. Being a member of our audience, you most likely do research, watch videos, and read articles that contain good and true scientific and economic facts. But these would be sources that some people in positions of power would call a fringe minority with unacceptable views. The truth is, protecting your privacy as you engage in the online world should be a high priority for you. I want to help your online security with something that is actually safe and effective, and that is private internet access, the world's most transparent VPN provider. A VPN, or virtual private network, hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. So, say you wanted to donate money to a lawful and peaceful trucker protest in Ottawa, and you didn't want the Liberal government tracking you down and freezing your bank accounts. A VPN would be your friend, just as any Canadian would. Private internet access will also never record or store user data, and their no logs policy has been proven multiple times in court and by third party audit. It's very easy to use. Simply open up the app, click to connect, and that's it. PIA VPN is available for all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and many more. You'll also get to protect your entire household with one subscription. Our audience has access to an amazing special offer. If you sign up with private internet access by clicking on the link below and going to piavpn.com/Liberty Dispatch, you will grab a discount of 83%. That's just $2.03 a month. And you'll also get 4 extra months completely free. I don't know if you've seen the price of eggs recently, but $2.03 a month for online peace of mind is incredible. Signing up for private internet access is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and 24/7 customer support is available, so don't wait any longer. Protect your personal data, get out of Big Brother's sight, go to piavpn.com/Liberty Dispatch to get 83% off private internet access with 4 free months.
And you're definitely going to want to go over there and do that and make, I mean, I feel like the price that they're giving you for protection on your internet, it's like they're almost giving you it away for free. It's unbelievable. So go over there, get yourself some internet protection with a high quality VPN.
piavpn.com/Liberty Dispatch. piavpn.com/Liberty Dispatch. So we have 3 press conferences we want to talk about today. It's the tale of 3 leaders. First, we want to talk about Mark Carney, one Mark's Commie, or Maximum Carnage, our new Prime Chameleon. That's courtesy of Sam Cooper.
Yeah,
He,
that's a good one.
he rounded out the title, so our Prime Chameleon. So he held his first press conference after being officially elected as our Prime Globalist. And we wanted to play you 2 clips from it and give comment on it because, I mean, I don't expect any of you to listen to the full 30 minutes. It's brutal. It's it's like a cheese grater to my face. But
Andrew, Robert Fife thought it was the best interview a prime minister's given in 10 years. So
yeah,
ooh,
well, that's because
didn't
he's
know he
blown a lot
hated
of
Justin so much.
he's blown a lot of smoke out of his fife. So that's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
that's why he
It's
would say
also
that.
the bar's been very low for the last
Yeah.
decade, shall we say?
So we want to play, first of all, a little bit of a clip, and this is the image, this is the vision of Mark Carney's kind of Canada, with him as the prime climate cultist, and what it is, how he wants to shape Canada into his image and the image of all his globalist buddies. Let's play this first clip.
On Monday, Canadians elected a new government to stand up to President Trump and to build a strong economy. Canadians also sent a clear message
Orange
that their
pen
cost
bad.
of living must come down and their communities need to be safe. As
So
Prime
let's
Minister,
elect
I've
the
heard
guys
these
that
messages
ruined
loud and
it.
clear, and I will act on them with focus and determination. And now that Canadians have honored me with a mandate to bring about big changes quickly, I will work relentlessly to fulfill that trust. As I stressed on election night, I am committed to working with others, governing as a team in Cabinet and caucus, and working constructively across parties in Parliament, working in real partnership with provinces, territories, and Indigenous peoples, and bringing together labor, business, and civil society to advance the nation-building investments that will transform our economy.
Centralized command and
In the coming
control of the
weeks, I will
economy.
unveil
on.
more of our plans to engage with Canadians as we embark on the biggest transformation of our economy since the end of the Second World War. On Tuesday, I had a very constructive call with President Trump, and we agreed to meet next Tuesday in Washington. Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our two sovereign nations. My government will fight to get the best deal for Canada. We will take all the time necessary, but not more, in order to do so. In parallel, we will strengthen our relationships with reliable trading partners and allies. Canada has what the world needs, and we uphold the values the world respects.
Nope.
Canadians in the NHL play for a variety of teams passionately against each other. But when they're in a once-in-a-lifetime series such as the Four Nations or the Olympics, those same Canadians come together to win it all. During elections, Canadians play and cheer for different teams. Now that election is over, and we are in a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. It's time together, it's time to come together to put on our Team Canada sweaters.
Oh, man.
Il est temps d'être unis. Unis le Canada
That is such a
accomplit des
tortured
choses
metaphor.
difficiles, des choses qui semblaient
So
impossibles.
tortured.
Now is the time for ambition, to be bold, to meet this crisis with an overwhelming positive force that is
Everything
united
is a
Canada.
crisis to him.
It's time
Everything.
to build, and my government is getting to work to build. Build big, bold, and build now.
He almost said build back better. He almost
He
said
did.
it.
Build back. So a couple things that we want to highlight in that press conference were, first of all, our economy is transforming. Okay,
Yes.
so so that's
Marxists
okay.
love the word transformation.
And also that our economy is about to undergo the greatest transition since the Second World War.
Yeah.
And he hinted, so those three clips back to back are supposed to show you the trajectory. So
Mhm.
our economy has transformed.
Mhm.
Our economy is about to undergo a transformation, and that transformation will include, in part, opening doors and connecting with our global partners. Maybe not so much the United States. Maybe we need to open the door wide open to China, for example. And so here's the trajectory. It's things are changing, not for the better, and we're going to open the door to globalism. That basically is what he was saying. We will open the door
Mhm.
to more globalism in Canada, and also we like China.
Mhm.
That's what Mark Carney has to say.
Yeah, if globalism hasn't ruined our nation enough over the last decade, we're going to get it more. we're
Yeah.
we're going to even harder under Carney's regime, because remember, this is the guy during the campaign who declared himself a proud globalist and elitist. Like, that's how he describes himself, right? That's the company he keeps. That's the identity that he has. That's why he identifies as a European when he's in the WEF, and he just comes home to run for an election and be propped up by Canada's propaganda outlets, so he can get the role of the Prime Minister of Canada. Mark Carney is a dangerous figure because underneath the tortured metaphors and the kind of greasy smile. He's got a really creepy, greasy smile. It's not good. Underneath all of that is a dangerous ideologue. And he truly is. He truly is a dangerous ideologue. And I think this came out in a bunch of his press conferences, who does think he's better than a lot of people. Like, he really does give that air of superiority when he's talking to people. And that's the way that he, when you read values, that's what it comes off as. He's waxing poetic and eloquent, but he's not really saying that much. Most of the conference is just, corporate jargon strung together to say very little. But it's important that you point out some of the things you did in it, because those buzzwords are the tell, right? Transformational, a biggest change in our economy, like you said, since the World War II. Well, what is the WEF model? Everything's a crisis. You saw it in that clip. And therefore, we need to mobilize through command and control, government centralization, government control of the entire economy, and centralized power from the top down is necessary to fight whatever crisis they're going to manufacture. That is not by accident. He's using that language because he's telegraphing what's about to happen. And underneath all that banal speak is a dangerous globalist ideology that comes out of Davos. It is everything that we've been warning about. And this guy, we've said it multiple times on the program, Trudeau might have been the face or the mouthpiece of this globalist regime. He is one of the cortexes of the brain. There's no doubt about it. And that's what we're dealing with greasy Mark Carney.
So the initial crisis that he's talking about, obviously, is the trade crisis because of Orange Man bad. So one of the things that Mark Carney addressed in this press conference were also some comments regarding Donald Trump leading into the meeting that he had with Trump just this past week. So we want to play you the second clip from the press conference where he specifically has his comments on Donald Trump.
What specifically do you want to get out of your first in-person meeting with President Trump, and will you be focused on trying to get the tariffs lifted?
Thank you for the question. For the first meeting, as I mentioned in my remarks, and the President and I discussed when we had our constructive call, there are two sets of issues. There are the immediate tariffs, both sectoral and so-called reciprocal and fentanyl tariffs, and then there is the broader relationship. So addressing both sets of issues. We'll see how that progress goes. It's important to get engaged immediately, which has always been my intention, has always been his intention. And I'm
so you waited until now, Andrew.
Quite a comprehensive set of meetings that will take place on Tuesday.
We've heard Mr. Trump on April 23rd and his surrogates throughout the final days of the campaign reiterate.
Can I just stop it right here, Andrew? All the questioning from mainstream media is propping up this narrative that the liberals want to play it on, right? Trump, Orange Man bad. This is the whole idea that they're putting forth over and over and over and over again. And you can just see how the media plays into the liberals' hands by directing all these questions at them. It's so annoying.
The idea that they believe Canada should become the 51st state on the campaign trail. You said on multiple occasions that respect for Canada would be one of the key things in terms of having a meeting with him. Do you think over the past few days we have seen respect for Canada from the Trump administration?
Look, it's always important to distinguish want from reality. La volonté et la réalité, right?
Pause for a sec. I can't stand when he does that. That his smug, pretentious.
Yeah.
Let me just flex by saying something pithy in French. Like, what do you do? Like, he did that when, like, after his first when he was appointed, right? When he won the leadership, he did that. He came out and he's periodically done this.
This is his
where
book. He just does this
oh,
over and over again. It's so irritating.
it's so gross. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Like, the person asks you a question in English, and how do you know this person speaks French? Like, what are you doing? You're not actually answering their
Well,
question.
he
You're just
literally
trying to
just says
show how
2
smart
words in
and
French.
complex you are. Ugh,
It's silly. He's such a
it's so annoying.
goof.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so pretentious and elitist.
Yeah.
It's nauseating.
Yeah, so he's nauseating definitely for different reasons than Justin Trudeau. And I think you've put your finger on the pulse there.
What is reality and what the Canadian people clearly have stated, virtually without exception, is this.
You can see how idiots might think he's smart though, Andrew, right?
Of course.
He's to idiots the smart person in the room. So you can kind of see why Justin Trudeau and the Liberals might like him.
Will never ever happen. And if any of the leaders of the party and their representatives would attest to that, I think the votes attest to it. I think the public dialogue attests to it as well. We are, we're meeting as heads of our government to discuss that partnership. Now, I'm not pretending those discussions will be easy or they won't proceed in a straight line. There'll be zigs and zags, ups and downs. But as I said in my remarks, I will fight for the best deal for Canada and only accept the best deal for Canada and take as much time that's necessary.
Wow, it sounds like fighting words. He's going in ready, hot. He's going in ready to fight for Canada.
I also want to everyone to notice that the comment that virtually all Canadians, without exception, have no desire or interest in Canada becoming the 51st state, and that the votes reflect that, he's either he's just flat out lying, or he's completely oblivious to what Canadians actually want, which is also a possibility because he doesn't care. He doesn't care what actual Canadians want. He can't relate to the average Canadian. So obviously in his mind, everyone thinks like him. All his elitist buddies have the same way of thinking. But to say that virtually all Canadians, without exception, have no desire for Canada to join the 51st state is patently and demonstrably false. And the votes do not bear that out, because as much as the Liberal Party won, in terms of the total vote, the popular vote, they only won by a few 100,000 more. It wasn't this complete decimation. In terms of the popular vote, it wasn't that much more. And you just have to you just go on some Alberta Proud Facebook and X pages and channels, and you'll see there's actually a lot of people in Canada who like that idea. And I, for example, know of a lot of people personally who are very much in favor of that idea.
Well, our episode with Tim Stevens on that idea did by far the best out of any of our content on YouTube for a long time. And Andrew, it should be noted too that Canadians have already by and large voted on whether or not they want to become Americans, because since let's say 2020, especially over the last handful of years.
Oh yeah, how many
massive
left?
amount of Canadians have been fleeing Canada. Where? To the United States of America.
Yep. Especially
massive
in Ontario.
amounts.
Ontario saw we I think we wrote about this a couple of years ago. Ontario has seen a significant drop in people fleeing to Alberta, but also to the United States. So I didn't even think about that. You're right that Canadians have already voted by leaving.
Yes, and in droves. And I have no doubt that those numbers are going to continue to skyrocket because of what just took place in the election. So it's a sham, and much of the I would say mass Canadian flight to the United States of America has happened during this, over decade-long reign of terror by this new hyper Marxist progressive liberal government. And it's bound to get worse under Mark Carney, and we're gonna see later in the episode, man. He could not be more wrong. But that is part of the play, right? because they want the Liberals, Mark Carney, all these globalist elitists, they want it to seem like anybody who...
Well, that's the jamming play, right? Like
Yes.
the desensitization
Mhm.
is you tell people, like, if you keep over and over again,
Saying
if you
it's
bombard
crazy.
them with, well, Trump is bad, America is bad, we're
Mhm.
proud to be Canadians, here's who we are, we're not Americans, we take pride in we're not Americans, America bad. Well, you keep over and over again, you desensitize people, and in the desensitizing, you normalize it, and then the jamming is you say to anyone who would say, we want to join the States, you're unpatriotic, you're
Mhm.
not Canadian, that's not acceptable. So
You're
he's
the troubler
engaging,
of Israel.
right?
You're
He's
the troubler of
engaging
Israel.
in a, they're right now they're engaging in a jamming campaign of saying, if anyone, like, no reasonable good Canadian would support becoming the 51st state.
Mhm.
Only the same sort of radical fringe minority with unacceptable views. I mean, he basically, I wouldn't be
Yes.
surprised if those words. So what's today? Today's what? May the 10th?
Yep.
Let's put a pin in today. I wouldn't be surprised if some or all of those words are not also used in a similar fashion to describe the Canadians that would say we need to join the United States.
Mhm.
And so just let's see if that actually happens. But that's where they're at right now. And he finishes off that press conference by saying, like you said, Matt, I'm going in strong, bold with President Trump. I will get the best deal for Canada. I'm fighting for Canadians, and I will not back down. I will be like Justin Trudeau on his way out. I've always fought for Canadians. What a
Yeah.
So they're the same. So that we, but before we get into that, I need to mention quickly that we just wrapped up. So yesterday we just wrapped up our third of our 3-part webinar series on Bitcoin for freedom.
Mhm.
And so if you were able to take part in those, if you joined, then you got great information and you were able to actually ask questions and have them answered by either Pablo from Bull Bitcoin or Nate and Jesse, guys from Bitcoin Mentor. They're connected with Bull Bitcoin as well. For anyone who was unable to make any of those webinars, they will be available at a later date. We need to edit the videos and get them out on our channels, but they will be available. The Q&A will not be available because there was some sensitive material discussed, some questions that people asked, so it'll just be the presentation. But I bring that up because you're going to want to take in those videos when we release them to everyone, and you're going to want to look into Bitcoin. And if you listen to Matt and I when we told you to buy Bitcoin not that long ago, you'd be going, yippee, right now, because it broke 100K American again. I think is it 102 or 103 the last
Yeah, it
time I
was going
checked.
up.
American.
I think I even got as high as 104, I want to say, which is
Yep.
probably pushing its highest ever. I'm assuming.
Yep.
I don't know
The
what.
106 was the all-time high.
Okay.
Not
Yeah,
that
well,
long ago. And
it's the
so,
trajectory has been high,
yeah.
very
So
high. 103.
why Bitcoin? Great question. We have an answer for you.
Do you like money?
Yeah. Do we here? What's our answer? Well, just watch. Inflation through the roof.
Grocery prices up 11% year over year.
Censorship of dissident voices. Freezing of bank accounts.
Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Digital surveillance and communism spreading.
What do we want? Basic income!
With the basic income, and I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
The government is on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're coming for your money.
Is Canada's federal debt increasing in real time, now surpassing $1.2 trillion. This debt is draining taxpayer dollars, with interest alone costing $54 billion this year.
It's time to break free and start saving in money they can't take from you. Since 2013, the folks at Bull Bitcoin have one mission: destroy central banking. Bull Bitcoin is the most trusted Bitcoin company in Canada. They empower you to buy, sell, and pay bills with Bitcoin. They are 100% non-custodial, which means that you always maintain full control over your Bitcoin. allowing you to reclaim your financial sovereignty and secure your wealth for the future. Their customer support will assist you throughout the whole process, helping you get your hands on the hardest money ever created. Escape their financial gulag, click on the link below, and start buying Bitcoin today and get a $20 bonus as a listener of Liberty Dispatch.
Man, I think when we had that epic trailer for the first time, that ad that they gave us, I think, Bitcoin was like, it was all the way down at like 70 thou at one point. But if you listen to that, if you got fired up and you said, hey, I'm going to go do something about this, then you would be pretty happy today. And obviously, volatility with Bitcoin, but also,
and we addressed that in the seminar and the webinars. We addressed
a lot of security,
the nature
too.
of Bitcoin and the nature of the volatility, what it means to hodl,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the trajectory. I mean, if you just take snapshots of the value of Bitcoin every month or every 2 months, sure. But if you look at Bitcoin over the last 5 years or the last 10 years, that's a whole different beast. Anyway, so those videos will be coming out. We'll let you know. You're going to want to watch them. There's great information in all 3 of the webinars. And then the plan is to debrief with the Bull Bitcoin guys. And we want to run 3 more webinars of more specific and slightly different topics in the near future. So moving on, Mark Carney went in, elbows up,
right? He
ready
was
to throw, right? Ready to get 4 minutes for unsportsmanlike conduct, 2 minutes for elbowing.
Which is elbowing is a penalty. It's an infraction in hockey.
Yeah. So he was ready to go and slam an elbow into the back of.
Yeah, that's what he went in hot and heavy, buddy.
When you compare the two of them, I mean, Trump towers over Carney. I mean, I put my money on Donald in a street scrap. But in any event, Carney shows up, right? And his promise is, I'm going to get the best deal possible. I'm going to stand up to Trump. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm going to get the best deal for Canada. And that is the exact opposite of what happened when the two of them met, because our prime chameleon is confident when it comes to insulting and berating female journalists who are standing at a distance from him. But when he's actually sitting, right, and he pays them too, as opposed to sitting beside who's arguably the most powerful leader in the free world, it's a little bit different. So this first clip is Trump is pressed with Carney right beside him on the 51st state, and Carney, has his words, and then Trump, in Trump fashion, has his little pithy response to all of it. So let's watch this together.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney with us. As you know, just a few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada. And I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take vote credit. His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning. So I really want to congratulate him. It was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. But I want to just congratulate you. That was a great election, actually. We were watching it with interest, and I think Canada chose a very talented person, a very good person, because we spoke before the election quite a few times.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to get your response to this too. Mr. President, you have said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but it takes 2 to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, I do feel it's much better for Canada. But we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that
His body
there are
language
tremendous
is
benefits
so
to the
good.
Canadian citizens,
So
tremendously
uncomfortable right
lower
now.
taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Can I speak, Mr. Trump? Can I speak?
Man, I think somebody broke down the conversation. So I think it was just like maybe over 30 minutes, about 35 minutes or whatever, this kind of in front of the cameras portion like they
Carney
like to
got that
do.
much. They got that much.
Carney got 3 minutes and Trump
minutes.
took about 33 minutes.
Yeah.
Which
Takes
you
a while.
know is
It takes
purpose.
a while to it takes a while to spank a prime minister.
Yeah,
Right? It takes a good 28 minutes just to slap him around a little bit.
But this is the art of the deal stuff. This is the type of who's the alpha male, who's the alpha dog in the room. And this is the type of stuff that Donald Trump pulls in order to belittle the people he's
And
Carney doesn't deal with it well.
No, Trump is also a little unbearable. Like he's also probably the greatest comeback except for my own. Like, get over yourself. Like you're also a ghoul, right? Like this, it's so all of it's gross. All of it's gross. I don't like either of these guys. It is funny, but it's funny because it's depressing. Because these are our leaders. Like, look at that picture right there. Those are right there are the two. That's North America's leadership right there. Okay. That picture, and when you think about it, it's funny, but it's funny because it's depressing. Because on the one hand, you have a vile, Canada-hating, globalist, Marxist, just evil villain of a man, and on the other side, you have an arrogant, hyper self-inflated, egotistical, probably womanizing, also God-hating, unrepentant, and both of these guys are chameleons, right? I mean, both of these guys. Donald Trump was a registered Democrat for a long time. He saw the way things were going, but he's only on the right because of the way that the cultural and Overton window have shifted. Donald Trump is nowhere near conservative. Donald Trump is closer to conservative. He's as close to conservative as I am to Marx. Like but these are the leaders we get, ladies and gentlemen. When we have the countries that we do, when we vote the way that we do, when we disengage the way that we do, when we spill the blood that we do as a country, these are the leaders we get. They're ultimately both, to me, they might have some funny moments, especially Trump, but ultimately they're both unbearable to me. Watching this is a strain for me altogether.
I've always thought that Trump is very much a Jehu figure, and if anybody is familiar with Jehu's story, doesn't end well, despite the good that he does as far as judging and destroying the enemies of God. He himself is not a righteous man, and unfortunately that is a accurate assessment of Donald Trump. Although one can hope he's with his near-death situation and everything that he's gone through over the last years, that he's certainly changing. Well, we'll see. Anyways, let's continue on with this total gong show. I have an interview.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
He was waiting. He was waiting to get that out.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale.
Watch for a sec. See, when he says that's an interesting little slip, because when he said, I've met with the owners of Canada, he wants us to believe what he's referring to are the citizens.
Yeah. He's talking about the Chi-Coms.
Yeah. So he's right. He has met with the owners of Canada, And the owners of Canada, which are the globalist power brokers and Chinese overlords, right, Canada isn't for sale because they own Canada, and they don't want to give it up to the United States because the United States right now is the other global superpower at war with China. It's not a hot war right now, but that's so.
If you want to know more about that, Andrew, if you want to know if people want more juicy insights into that, you have to become a paid subscriber over at ldcanada.substack.com, because that right there is the very heart of the conversation that we have with Samuel Cooper, and it is a very, very interesting discussion that you won't want to miss. But let's get back, continue plodding along in this conversation.
Yeah, Trump comes back with with a little bit of a Trump.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Trump is just freewheeling. You can tell. He's just, this is what he does. This is how he talks. This is how he interacts. Mark Carney had a list of like 5 things that he really, really wanted to say in this instance. And, we didn't play the start of the interview, but I mean, he brown noses. He goes in there and he butters Trump up in a serious way.
You've been a transformational president. And hold on a second, wasn't he the demon devil of Canada? I don't understand.
All of a sudden. And also he talked about his legitimacy of him going after fentanyl and all these. And it's like, wait, hold on. I thought these tariffs were unjustified.
Yeah.
That
and
no
fentanyl's not really
was
an issue. Yeah.
So you can't have both of those things at the same time. Nevertheless, that's what we see here with this two-faced chameleon.
But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low, and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
When you consider what Mr. Carney just said, that Canada is not for sale, does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, time will tell. It's only time. But I say
it's only a matter of time before I get what I want.
No, doesn't make it hard. I got this guy.
So I'm saying, you think this slime ball beside me is going to get in the way of what I want? Look at this guy.
Oh man,
you think this guy with his ghoulish smile is going to get in the way of what I want?
Yeah,
I eat guys like this for breakfast. That's like.
I love the reporter. He's like, oh, Carney's standing up so tough against Trump. Oh, yes, Orange Man bad. He really got him. He said Canada wasn't for sale.
Hey there, President Trump there, eh? Mark Carney just said that if you try to come for Canada, they're going to throw maple syrup bombs at you, eh? What are we going to do about that? Trump's like, no big deal.
No big deal. I like maple syrup. I think it's delicious.
Never say never. I've had many, many things that were not doable, and they ended up being doable, and only doable in a very friendly way. But if it's to everybody's benefit, Canada loves us, and we love Canada. That's, I think, the number one thing that's
the
important.
eye rolls.
But we'll see. I mean, over time, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and Carney's just like, what do I say? Nothing.
He totally humiliated him, man. But the really interesting part too is. It was really interesting because in the aftermath of this meeting, the Liberals seemed to think that Mark Carney, it was a masterstroke. He just nailed it out of the park. Like,
he was elbows up. He was elbows up.
And it's like, guys, did you what? Like, are we living in the same reality? Like, he literally went in there and brown-nosed him. He put forward in the campaign to Canadian citizens that Donald Trump is the greatest threat, that the behemoth of the United States is going to steal our sovereignty. They're going to annex us as a nation. So when he went and sat down with him, the most part of the conversation where he actually did speaking, he spent like 2 minutes saying that Donald Trump is the greatest, most transformational president in the history of the United States. Like, that's elbows up. That's elbows up. And whispering, never, 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 never. Like, when he says, Canada's not for sale, and in response to
speak a
Trump's
little
never.
bit louder. Speak a little bit louder, Mark. Why don't you say that to Trump's face?
Sorry, Mark, I can't hear you. What did you say, buddy?
Yeah, can't hear you all. So this next clip from that discussion was specifically related to tariffs and the kind of what this means for Canada-America relationship. So let's watch this video together.
I think. To clarify, Mr. President, is there anything the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your mind on tariffing Canada?
Tariffing cars?
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
Can you please? Let me speak.
He's like, I'm holding up the talking stick, Donald.
Yeah. Let me speak, please.
Dude, you just got to get in there, man. You just start talking.
Sure, I would. But this is not necessarily a one-day deal. This is over a period of time they have to make that decision. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. Respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world.
Trump is about to hit him over the head with a bat.
Is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussion.
China.
That's why we're here.
China's involved.
To have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada. And we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to
Carney,
take care of itself economically. I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them
I like that Carney did kind of let out a smile there. Like, he did he did crack a little bit. And that is the Trump effect. Like, he's a funny, charismatic guy. So if you sit in the room with him long enough, he'll get you once or twice.
I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, I mean, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number. And it's hard for the American taxpayer to say, gee whiz, we love doing that.
Clear that thing off my leg as I'm squirming in discomfort.
Man, he is the entire time. super embarrassing.
Mark Carney says we do business with the United States. We buy from them, we sell to them. So this relationship's important. And Trump's like, we don't need your stuff.
Yeah,
and
not
we
really.
Don't want
though.
your stuff. Yeah, we don't need your stuff. We don't want your stuff. So what are we talking about here? Oh no, we buy a lot of stuff from you. Okay, well, you're going to keep buying stuff from us. See, this is the thing. So a lot of Canadians don't understand this, and I love Canada. I love this country. My grandparents came here after the Second World War. They left a war-torn Italy. They left poverty. They came to Canada. They worked hard. They raised a family. Here I am. I'm a second-generation immigrant. My mom was born in Italy. I love Canada. I love this country. I am not leaving this country. I don't plan on going to the United States. I think I've made it abundantly clear that for the sake and good of Canada, I'm willing to fight and engage and do what's necessary. So what I'm about to say is not an anti-Canadian, national self-deprecating sentiment. But I think Canadians have a substantially overinflated view of ourselves in many ways.
100%.
And one of those ways is to think that we are, even though we have a beautiful country that is full of all sorts of incredible natural resources that should lead to our overall wealth and prosperity on the global
Lord
scale.
has richly blessed Canada. Richly blessed it.
These are all true. I think that we overestimate how important we are in terms of what we offer to the United States and what we actually contribute to that. And I think that this sense of, but look at what we do. You need us, United States. You need us for this. You need us for that. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And so Carney tries to play that hand, and Trump says, no. We don't want your cars. We don't want your steel. We don't want your aluminum. We want to make our stuff here because we can. And Carney's response is nothing, because I think Trump is right. I think he's more right than not. And
especially if you factor in, some of the machinations that are going on that we're going to talk about when it pertains to Western Canada, because frankly, what is there for the United States of America if Canada loses Alberta and perhaps Saskatchewan, and whether they become independent or they become a part of the United States of America, they would be essentially lopping off Canada's two biggest economies right now. Most prosperous economies, obviously, volume-wise, GDP, Ontario still up there, but we all, as you've talked about, we know how much absolutely sub-sovereign debt, unbelievable crisis that Ontario is currently in. So, I mean, it was it was an embarrassing meeting. It's interesting to see the CBC and the mainstream media outlets really try and spin it into like some sort of master class from Carney. But, Andrew, I just think, like I said, Mark Carney is a stupid person's smart person. And I really do think that he really is, in some ways, a reflection of Canada's current view of itself. It's a good point. Right? Like he is that. Like when we get the leaders we deserve, Calvin has a great quote about that, right? Yeah. We get the leaders that we deserve. And I think I think Mark Carney is a great reflection about Canada right now. We're old, we're aging, we care more about titles and superficiality and perceived intelligence than actual real substance, authenticity, and actual intelligence. And I can't think of anybody I've ever seen in the last long while that embodies just that as Mark Carney, right? These tortured metaphors about hockey. Dude, you played for an Ivy League school. You were goalie for an Ivy League school that is not a competitive hockey market.
The pictures
like a long time ago.
The picture of him on the ice with the Edmonton Oilers, where he was passing the puck. I was like, "Oh God, you look so terrible." Like that's awful. Ugh.
But he's hardly been in Canada for a long time. So the idea that he's somehow a born and bred like super Canadian guy, which he's definitely trying to, force into his speeches, into his press conferences, it's just so artificial. And that's the type of stuff that people hate. That will wear thin because it's so inauthentic. So maybe you can do that for 30 days to get elected, right? Maybe you can do that for however long he's been in the scene, less than 3 months. But people will start seeing through that very quickly. And I have no doubt that that's actually going to start happening in Canada real quick.
Well,
especially
but
with all the things
Matt,
going on.
But I'll push back a little bit and say that if he's an accurate reflection of Canada, then maybe they won't. Maybe a lot of people won't. Maybe enough people. I mean, I can't believe that Justin Trudeau was elected 3 times. I mean, that's I thought, okay, so 2019 maybe, but I thought in 2021 he had just invoked the War Measures Act and then it was pulled back. I'm like, there is no way this guy's going to, and he did win again. So it looks like maybe enough Canadians won't smarten up. So to wrap that up, it's easy to flex on Trump when you're standing in front of a bought and paid for legacy media, but it's a lot different when you're beside Trump and media that you don't own. It's a totally different story. And that's what we saw. We saw what happens when you are not surrounded by reporters that are paid for and subsidized by tax dollars to prop you up. When you're not in that scenario and when you're with someone who actually, I'll give credit to Trump, is a little bit of a bulldog and getting what he wants, you become a different guy altogether. So we want to move
100%.
on and look at I thought this has not gotten the play it should. This is a very, very significant press conference from Danielle Smith. And essentially she has to formally say what she does not support, but her actions and policy tell you she probably does support it, but she just can't say it outwardly because of her position.
She's being pretty cagey.
She's being shrewd, which is I think the right play, because I think people are smart enough, they'll see through it and they'll understand, I see what you did there. But before we do, we have to tell you about our friends over at Rocklinc Investment Partners, which is always our pleasure to do. We partner with Rocklinc Investment Partners because they believe that financial stewardship is about more than just making money. It's about investing with wisdom and discipline. That's why they carefully research and invest in only the highest quality, mission-critical business companies that are building real, sustained value. Their focused long-term strategy helps you protect your capital and grow it responsibly. Are you ready to take the next step? Then call 905-631-5462 or email them at info@rocklinc.com and see how they can help you remove the anxiety of investing. And I guess I'll say at this point, you might be thinking, hold on a second. You guys are talking about bull Bitcoin. You're talking about Bitcoin. You're talking about Rocklinc Investment Partners. Aren't those two kind of things antithetical? Well, if you're an extreme all one or the other kind of person, then maybe. But one of the things that part of what we want to bring you with our show from a worldview perspective is we want to analyze it from a biblical and balanced perspective, that there's nuance, and I use that word correctly, not in the woke way, but there's nuance. Life is not simply a matter of extremes in black and white. There's more going on. So in a similar way, not only do we want to offer you that perspective when it comes to worldview, but when we think about the stuff that the Lord has given you to steward, we also want you to be wise and balanced and understand there might be a place to invest and diversify and spread your wealth out across a number of different options in order to be wise, in order to be a good steward, in order to prepare for certain events happening in the economy and the financial world. So you might think we're being a little bit schizophrenic by saying you have an investment partner portfolio type, hedge fund manager ish, and over here you got the Bitcoin. I thought those guys hate each other. No, we're talking about how to best steward your wealth and how to be wise with the different things that you have that the Lord has given you. Diversification is I think smart. I'm not a financial accountant or planner, and don't take your financial advice from me directly, but we want to help you be wise with what you have. So with that in mind, now we want to move to the third leader, right? The tale of three leaders. We got Carney, we got Trump, and now we want to look at Danielle Smith. And in this press conference, which we've attached the link, I would go watch the whole thing, in part because there's no arbitrary half of it in French, which is very refreshing to me.
Yes.
To not, although she did have her 2-minute, we need to acknowledge the indigenous blah blah blah. She did that a little bit, which was
that
I was
stuff
like,
can't
what?
Die soon enough.
Don't like just everything was good except for that. Why do you gotta? But she did.
Well, we're gonna play good Danielle Smith, and I've added a clip of bad Danielle Smith, and we can talk about that a little bit later.
So this is Danielle Smith saying, in light of the election of our new prime minister, and in light of the last 10 years, this is what Alberta is demanding from the federal government. So this is the first part, her listing those 4 demands.
That is why a large majority of Albertans are so deeply frustrated with the results of last week's federal election. It's not that our preferred candidate and party lost. That happens in a democracy. It's that the same Liberal government with almost all the same ministers responsible for our nation's inflation, housing, crime, and budget crisis, and that oversaw the attack on our provincial economy for the past 10 years, have been returned to power. Now, as we all know, one thing has changed. We have a new Prime Minister. And I will say that in my first conversation with him since the election, he had some promising things to say about changing the direction of his government's anti-resource policies. However, Albertans are more of a actions speak louder than words kind of people. So while I will in good faith...
Andrew, I'm just going to stop it there. What other actions do you need to see at this point? Alberta. What have we said over and over again on this program? A lot of our predictions have been right because we've taken people at face value. What they say, who they say they are, we've just accepted that they are telling the truth. And then it turns out that what they were saying was in fact the case. Alberta has been getting shafted by the federal government for decades upon decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. So if you're an actions speak louder than words people, why is it only in 2025 that you're having this conversation?
Well, maybe what they've been waiting for is a formal offer from the United States. Who knows?
Well, I don't know.
That's what they've been waiting for.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, Albertans, put your money where your mouth is. I support you in this. I actually think Albertans are not the separatists. Albertans, in many respects, are people who value Canadian values historically. They're people who love what Canada was and have a desire to see it prosper.
So they're more like the Americans that looked at King George and said, "You have broken covenant.
Yes,
like, we had an agreement.
Yes,
we're still being faithful, but you're the one, Ottawa, who's broken covenant.
Yeah,
You're the one."
They're looking at the Laurentian elites and they're saying, "You've sold out Canada. You're the globalist pigs. You're the scum. You've destroyed our nation. You've, shat on Alberta for decades and Western Canada, and we're not going to take it anymore. It's our love for this nation and our province that is driving us to say enough is enough. And they've got to be bold enough to act and decisive enough to act. And we'll see. Danielle Smith thinks she's being shrewd, but I've got my concerns. Anyways, let's continue.
With Prime Minister Mark Carney on unwinding the mountain of destructive legislation and policies that have ravaged our provincial and national economies this past decade. Until I see tangible proof of real change, Alberta will be taking steps to better protect ourselves from Ottawa.
Amen.
As a start, I will soon appoint a special negotiating team to represent our province in negotiations with the federal government on the following reforms requested by our province. We hope this will result in a binding agreement that Albertans can have confidence in. Call it an Alberta Accord, if you will. First, Alberta requires guaranteed corridor and port access to tidewater off the Pacific, Arctic, and Atlantic coasts for the international export of Alberta oil, gas, critical minerals, and other resources in amounts supported by the free market rather than by the dictates and whims of Ottawa. Second,
Amen.
The federal government must end all federal interference in the development of provincial resources by repealing the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, the oil tanker ban, the net zero electricity regulations, the oil and gas emissions cap, the net zero vehicle mandate, and any federal law or regulation that purports to regulate industrial carbon emissions, plastics, or the commercial free speech of energy companies.
Basically unwind the Trudeau
regime. The federal government must refrain from imposing export taxes or restrictions on the export of Alberta resources without the consent of the government of Alberta. And fourth, the federal government must provide to Alberta the same per capita federal transfers and equalization as is received by the other three largest provinces, Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia.
There you have it.
What I want, if you look at the first three demands especially, so people might ask, you guys are hyperbolic when you say that Canada is totalitarian and tyrannical. But we're not. And the evidence of that is here you have a federal government totalizing, saying we want total control and say we are the gateway through which all of this must proceed. If you want to do business, if you want to do this, it has to be through us, by us, according to us. So they are totalitarian. They want to have their hands in everything that every individual province does.
And that includes resource management, which is not the purview of the federal government.
Which is why they are tyrannical, because a tyranny properly defined is when the leaders are above and no longer under the rule of law and do what they want in a way that supersedes the law. And that's exactly what our federal government has been doing. They say the law doesn't apply to us. The agreements don't apply to us. We will step outside of our jurisdictional authority to do what we want to do. That is tyranny. So that we have a totalitarian and tyrannical federal government, as evidenced by just what Danielle Smith unpacks in terms of they have to stop doing this, and this, which is all evidence of what we said. Now, this press conference builds up to another thing that we've already mentioned. We mentioned in a previous episode, the lowering of the threshold for citizen-led initiatives. And here she formally will say, here's something else that we are changing. And because we want to help Albertans deal not only with their frustration, but also the fact that they feel that they might be cut off from or don't have full access to the democratic processes the way that we should. And this, in my opinion, this is the most important part of the entire press conference. And really, this is the news coming out of Alberta.
While these negotiations with Ottawa are ongoing, our government will appoint, and I will chair, the Alberta Next panel. This panel will be composed of some of our best and brightest judicial, academic, and economic minds to join with me in a series of in-person and online town halls to discuss Alberta's future in Canada, and specifically, what next steps we can take as a province to better protect Alberta from any current or future hostile policies of the federal government. Details of the membership and scope of that panel will be released in the coming weeks. After the work of the panel is finished, it is likely we will place some of the more popular ideas discussed with the panel to a provincial referendum so that all Albertans can vote on them sometime in 2026. To be clear from the outset, our government will not be putting a vote on separation from Canada on the referendum ballot. However, if there is a successful citizen-led referendum petition that is able to gather the requisite number of signatures requesting such a question to be put on a referendum, our government will respect the democratic process and include that question on the 2026 provincial referendum ballot as well.
So this is why this is significant. So this is where we need to read between the lines. So Danielle Smith has said what she needs to say, which is we are not, as a provincial government, we are not the ones who are saying, here's the option for separation. However, if the citizens of Alberta want to do that, we won't get in your way. Oh, and by the way, we've just made it easier for you to do that. So we've lowered the threshold of votes of signatures needed to actually bring this to a referendum by 2/3. So now instead of needing 600,000, you need 200,000. So that's why I think what she's saying is, if you guys want to do this, we'll hear it and we'll make it easier for you to do this. Though we ourselves cannot openly say this is an option. Obviously they can't. But I don't think they have to. I think that the end of her words there are her way of saying, but if this is what Alberta wants, then this is what we'll do.
Yeah, and I think this is a clear step in that direction, and good for her. I mean, it's savvy politicking on her part. I think this is the good Danielle Smith. There's some bad Danielle Smith, but this is definitely the good Danielle Smith. And I'm appreciative that she's giving Albertans a voice that unfortunately they haven't had in Canada for a long time, despite their outsized influence on the success, especially economically, of our great nation. So
it was the Trump Canada relationship heats up. This is very interesting in Canada because Danielle Smith she has thrown down the gauntlet. Ottawa, this is what we demand.
And those are serious demands. She's basically like, we demand you to basically undo the last decade of your government.
We contribute to the country. We're proud Canadians. And I think our contribution to reception of benefits ratio is way off compared to other provinces.
Yeah.
Also, their representation in the Senate, they do not have proportional and fair representation in the Senate.
The entire West doesn't.
So here we are doing more than our share for the benefit of Canada, and we are not getting a fair deal. We're not getting a fair shake. Therefore, going forward, she said, there's no wiggle room. This is what we're demanding, and
we're not
this is
putting
what
up
they
with
need
it.
to do. Now, I personally, I don't see a world where Mark Carney and the federal government comply. So
they're going to undo the last 10 years of liberal government. Like,
now we have a quandary because there's no way that I think Albertans will support Danielle Smith if she backs down. I mean, if she says this is what we demand and she then flakes out, she won't be winning her next election, which means she'll have to make a play. And I think that the more likely outcome is not Ottawa bending, but it's the citizens of Alberta saying then we're leaving. And of the two options, right? If in this hypothetical, if the only options are Ottawa bends and Alberta gets a fair shake, or Alberta ends up saying then we're leaving the federation, of those two options, I think that Alberta leaving is the more plausible one.
Oh, I don't doubt that for 1 second. I'm 100% with you. I think anybody that's paying attention, that's obvious. And listen, I really believe, like, they might even at this point, I don't think it's been reported on, but I think they might even have the number of signatures that they need
They
to.
do. I can't remember the Freedom Alliance Alberta or some group.
Yeah,
already has over 200,000 signatures. They already have the required signatures to trigger to bring the citizen-led initiative. So what
which
this means
you
is
knew
if
was
they-
going to happen. Like the threat.
So that
she
means
lowered
it will be on. Yeah. So when they release their ballot in 2026, or when they say that here's what we're voting on as Albertans, it appears that for the first time in the history of the province, the citizens of Alberta will have the opportunity to vote on whether or not they separate from the Federation.
Yeah,
which is that's very significant.
Yeah, and you talk about 4D chess. Perhaps this is part of what Donald Trump knows. Certainly, he's sitting there saying, "Well, never say never, brother." Really quick before we go, I did want to play this exchange because on this topic, Alberta separatism, it just so happened that a reporter asked Francois Blanchette, the leader of the really obnoxious, annoying, just leave already, Bloc Québécois party.
Yeah, I'm okay with them going. Can you leave already?
Yeah.
Like, as long as I could find another way to the Eastern Canada that I don't have to go through, I have to go through Mad Max dystopian French. If there was another way, by the way, if you're a listener from Quebec, please don't take offense. I probably like you. I just don't like the majority of the people that live in your province. So you don't take offense personally.
Regardless, he reacted to a question about Alberta separatism, and I think this perfectly encapsulates the relationship of Quebec to the rest of Canada. Delusional, smarmy smugness. Sorry, Quebecois. It's true. This is why basically nobody likes you. Not even the French, right? The Quebecois to the French are like, Canadian hicks. And anyways, I think this is a telling clip, but let's just watch it.
For the people in Alberta who want to separate, do you have any tips for them on how to actually get the job done?
Our success so far does not place me in a position to give them tips about what to do, but I could give them tips about what not to do. Not now. The first idea is to define oneself as a nation.
Which is
therefore it requires a culture of their own. And I am not certain that oil and gas qualify to define a culture.
Wow.
But it's theirs to...
That's it. That's all they've got, according to Quebec.
Yep.
He's probably never been to Alberta. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he has never left Quebec. Because Alberta, I don't know, they have a pretty defined culture. They have this really massive good times festival that happens every year where people go and they actually don a very specific garb that basically nowhere else in Canada wears. Like, you have to be an unbelievably idiotic, delusional loser to believe that all they have is oil and gas.
But he knows that he doesn't want Alberta to leave because that's his cash cow.
Yeah.
Alberta leaving is Quebec's cash cow because of the amount of money they get from the equalization payments.
Yeah.
Decide if they want to vindicate the right to self-determination. Would never interfere in that. It belongs to them. I would like us to be the first to do so.
But that's the thing, Andrew. That's the thing. He says that, but not really, right?
There's
They're
no
running.
way they don't want it. No, they want the best of both worlds.
Yeah, they're running the exact opposite play and tact as Danielle Smith. They're running the, oh, we're gonna leave if you don't give us everything. So Ottawa gives them everything and more, and then they're like really like, hey guys, we're not leaving. There hasn't really been a strong, serious separatist movement here since the mid 90s. But the reality is they just do this for political clout and for the privilege of being, despite being one of the most populous provinces in Canada, being subsidized by the Canadian government through socialistic redistribution of finances. But I really quick wanted to play Danielle Smith's response, because I think she has a good response, but I also think it shows Danielle Smith is not the right standard bearer for this, because I just want to highlight what she highlights as far as the strengths of Alberta and Alberta culture, because I listed something that's very uniquely Albertan: ranching culture, entrepreneurship, enterprise, freedom, adventure, outdoors activities. Those are all very Alberta things. But I want you to see what she says is, to her, what is indicative of Alberta culture. It's very interesting.
Of Yves-François Blachette's Bloc Québécois leader's comments on a referendum in Alberta, suggesting that you need to identify as a nation, you need a culture, and oil and gas is not culture.
We have a culture in Alberta. We've got a culture of entrepreneurship. We've got a culture that embraces multiculturalism. That has been built from people from all over the world. I think 163 different linguistic groups are represented here and find a way to forge an.
Andrew, does anybody know that about Alberta? Is that a part of Alberta's identity? Is multiculturalism? Are you kidding me, Danielle?
Identity that's both in keeping with their heritage as well as embracing Alberta. We've got an incredible relationship and history with Indigenous partners.
What? Why, Danielle? Andrew, am I crazy here? Am I crazy to point out those are the two things that she says? She's like, well, entrepreneurship, and then multiculturalism and our relationship with Indigenous people.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the case that BC and Ontario excel in multiculturalism and multi-ethnicity more than Alberta. And the Indigenous thing, that's the political answer.
Well, comparatively to Manitoba and Saskatchewan, Alberta hardly has any Aboriginal people. Most Aboriginal people live in Saskatchewan and Manitoba by far.
That's the political answer.
But come on, man, doesn't that show you perfectly how even the most conservative Canadian leaders, they're just cons? How is it possible that the two out of Alberta's identity, two of the the three markers that she lays out there are just like straight down the middle, unbelievably leftist coded language? It's just, it makes me wonder, is this because she's a lady? Is this the mum stuff that she wants to feel warm and fuzzy? And
who knows? It could be that she's actually a libertarian and not a conservative.
Well, right? Yeah, she is for sure. She's a left libertarian, right?
So when you're talking about identity, right? So if I were to sit down with a libertarian, a libertarian who maybe agrees with me on a number of policy issues, and we were to start unpacking what makes Canada Canada, we would have very different answers. Yeah. Right? Like at the top of the list, what makes Canada Canada? Canada historically is a Christian nation grounded upon the reality that Christ has and will have dominion from one seed to the other, that our nation is built upon biblical principles and biblical values, that the protection of rights, individual responsibility, and the reality of advancing what is true, good, and beautiful, and building and making in this glorious and magnificent nation to the glory of God, which means we work hard, which means we care for and love our neighbor, and which means we advance the kingdom of God through the Dominion mandate in what is the Dominion of Canada. That is not an answer you will get from someone who does not affirm a biblical world and life view. But that's why we will give different answers.
But there's no way libertarians, like actual like conservative anarcho capitalist libertarians, are going to say multiculturalism and indigenous relations
unless they're the premier of a province.
Well,
that's the political answer. It's a political answer.
But
they're
that's
all the same.
They're
all the same in this.
They're all ultimately playing elections. Like that's the type of sloganeering. That's the type of living underneath the liberal gaze that people are fed up with. Man, come on. Alberta has a lot of unique, distinct cultural aspects of it that are truly that people would, if you were to go to anybody in Canada, they could easily tell you how Alberta identifies culturally. And she listed 2 of the 3 that no one would talk about except for leftists. Like, I mean, Danielle, she's so bad on abortion. She's so bad on this stuff. It's frustrating. It's frustrating that this is apparently the best we've got in Canada right now.
These are the leaders we deserve. The leaders we have are the leaders we deserve. And even though if we were to grade, if we were to have a grading on a scale, that, Mark Carney would be on the bottom of the list, and then you'd have Donald Trump somewhere slightly above him, and then maybe Danielle Smith slightly above him. Even though we're marking them on a grade, at the end of the day, the leaders we have, unfortunately, are indicative of the kind of country that we have. And so let's just be real here. Where is the strong, conservative, God-fearing man to lead Alberta? Like, let's just, where is he? Where is the man?
I thought that was Jason Kenney.
Yeah. Barf. So you would say Alberta, a province like Alberta, to think about what defines Alberta, you think about Albertan culture. Where is that strong, bold, courageous, principled, horse riding, gun toting, strong man who will be a voice of true conservatism in the province? He doesn't exist. Why doesn't he exist? Why does that man not exist in any province? Why is it that there's essentially none of those men anywhere in elected office in our country? Why not? Because we get the leaders we deserve, because we breed our own leaders. So our leaders are ones who have been the subjects of our education system, of our cultural redefining and indoctrination. They're the ones who have been the subjects of the way the church is engaged in the culture and evangelism and in teaching and in witnessing. And so we have no one to blame for these terrible leaders than ourselves as a nation. And so the answer is not to continue to hope and pray and vote that one terrible leader will be better than the other and will help us out and save us, but rather to be faithful and to actually train up and produce good, godly leaders that won't compromise, that when they're asked that question are not going to say Indigenous rights, multiculturalism. But that's on us, though. Those leaders are nowhere to be found in our current political system. None of our premiers, none of our MPs, none of our MLAs, none of our MPPs are those kind of people. They're not. None of them. Even the better people that won in the recent federal election. So in Ontario, Matt Strauss won as an MP for the first Conservative in the history of his riding.
Yeah,
sure. I'm thankful that Matt Strauss was outspoken against the masks, but not about the jabs. He wasn't. Not the way that he should have been. Okay, so Roman Baber won, and he's a better option than the other guy, but he's not a real conservative. No way. Not in terms of what he believes. And Andrew Lawton, okay, Andrew Lawton won, and it's obviously he's a better guy to win in the Kitchener area, but the same thing. Andrew Lawton, you press him on some real social issues, you will not get true conservatism out of him. You won't. So even though these guys are better than what we've had, we do not have the leaders that we know we should have, or that we know we should want to have, and that ideally would exist. And the reason isn't just because Canada bad. The reason is us. Canadians and Christians in our country have not done what they should be doing, not engaging, not teaching, not discipling, not evangelizing, not training, not child rearing, not educating. They haven't done any of that stuff the way they should. This is the result. So if we want to see a change, you are, with respect, stupid if you think that the change will be electing a lesser ghoul over a worse ghoul. The change will come in doing the work now that will yield its fruit in a generation. Forget the short-term stuff. That there's no short-term fix. It's about building for the next generation and fruit. It's about planting a tree that you might not live to see bear fruit, but you do it because it's the right thing to do, and because it's what the Lord requires, and it's because we want to be a part of something great in the future. So these leaders are evidence that, man, we are a not so great nation in terms of the people that we have trained up. Well, the answer is to do it the right way from now on, in the hopes that in 40 years we will see a leader ask those very same questions and answer in a way that pleases the Lord and that's true, and in a way that the broader population will go, oh yeah, we support that. But we're not there yet,
it's just
and we're not going to be there for a while.
It's just like that's the thing. The answer that I gave about Alberta and their unique culture would actually ring true with Albertans, and frankly, every Canadian would understand it and give a thumbs up to it. Does any Canadian recognize Alberta as this bastion of multiculturalism where there's some sort of 160 language groups? No, they don't. It's crazy. But you're right. We could do way more YouTube shows. We could do way more content. We could spend all our time doing the Liberty Dispatch. But we are about building those long-term projects. Both you and I are investing in this future that we most likely will never see. So we're putting into practice the very things we preach week in and week out. But Christians, we need to wake up. We need to get off the sidelines. We need to stand up. We need to fight. And honestly, I think we just have to do it ourselves. Like, the more that you see people like Daniel Smith, people like PR Polyev, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. They think they're being shrewd. They think they're being so savvy and politically smart, but they lose all the time. And they're not even being prophetic. What do you call someone who loses consistently while also giving up all their principles? The biggest loser ever. And I'm sick of the losing. I would far much prefer a party that gets no seats, that gets politically ostracized, that gets assassinated and shut down, but speaks the very truth of God, than a party that just compromises its values every which way, lives under the liberal gaze, and then loses consistently on top of it. We need a better way, and that way is only through Christians who are being matured in Christ through the power of the Holy Spirit, who have a righteous indignation about the injustice that is done in our country, who knows that injustice done in the nation, in the land, is the very thing that causes God to spit people out of his mouth, to dispossess people of their land and heritage, the beautiful blessings that he bestows upon us. if we love Canada, which I know our listeners do, we have to be willing to tell Canadians to look in the mirror, to stop being delusional idiots, and to start making proper assessments about who we are, humble ourselves in sackcloth and ashes, and turn to the Lord in repentance and faith and do what he would have us to do, which is return to the values that once made Canada a great nation. Even if we were a small startup, we were still great because we were good. We're no longer good. We're real bad. And it's only going to get worse if Christians don't stand up. So that's what we want to say. We appreciate you tuning in. As always, go over ldcanada.substack.com. Go over there, become a paid subscriber. You're going to want to do it because you're going to get all our content as well as the upcoming. And we both were like digitally high-fiving after our conversation with Sam Cooper, the investigative journalist, because we had such a good conversation about what is going on in Canada-US relationships, how Canada has been sold, despite what Mark Carney's telling people, to the Chi-Coms, and how the U.S. is aware of that, and how all this plays into the tariff regimes and many of the conversations that we've seen play out on our screen in this episode. So we appreciate you tuning in, ldcanada.substack.com. Go over there, check it out. Until next time, Galatians 5:1. God bless y'all.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us and all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.